When my grandmother died, she left me a house. Not money, not jewelry, just a house. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, and a basement. The lawyer gave me the keys 3 days after the funeral. But he also gave me something else. A handwritten note from my grandmother. The first warning was simple. Don't go into the basement. The second was worse. If you hear knocking, don't answer. And the third mentioned a revolver. For the first 10 days, nothing happened. I unpacked my things, cleaned the house, fixed what I could. Eventually, I started believing my grandmother had simply been confused. Then, on the 11th night, I woke up at 2:17 in the morning. I didn't know what had woken me, but I had the unmistakable feeling that someone was standing in my room. Then I heard it, a slow scraping sound. Something was moving underneath the floorboards. Then came 3 knocks. Thud, thud, thud. The bed shook. Then a woman's voice came from beneath the floor. Alex. I knew that voice. It was my grandmother. The next morning, I decided to find an explanation. Pipes, rats, old plumbing, anything. So I grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs. I searched for almost 20 minutes. Then I noticed an old wardrobe pushed against the far wall. I moved it. Behind it was a wooden trunk. Inside were things from my childhood. Photographs, school notebooks, a baby blanket, a rattle, and underneath everything, a diary. I opened it. The first pages were ordinary. Then I reached the year I was born, and everything changed. My grandmother had written about a baby she found in the basement. A baby she claimed wasn't hers. She wrote about something that appeared on the stairs every night. Something that wanted the child. Then I found the sentence that changed everything. My grandmother hadn't raised me because I was her grandson. She had raised me because it kept the thing downstairs away from me. The basement light flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went black. I couldn't see my hands. I couldn't see the stairs. I couldn't even see the flashlight lying somewhere near my feet. For a few seconds, I just stood there, completely still, listening. The basement was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. Then I heard something else. A slow scraping sound. Something was moving in the darkness. And it wasn't coming from the stairs. It was coming from behind me. I reached down and grabbed the flashlight. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped it. I switched it on. The beam swept across the basement. Boxes, pipes, the old wardrobe, the stairs. Nothing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. Then the flashlight beam moved slightly to the left and stopped. There was something standing at the bottom of the stairs. I couldn't understand what I was looking at. It was too tall. Much too tall to be standing comfortably in that basement. Its arms hung almost to its knees. Its head was tilted sideways. It wasn't moving. It was just watching me. I raised the flashlight toward its face. And that's when it whispered, "You're home." The voice wasn't my grandmother's. It wasn't even completely human. It sounded like something that had heard human speech many times, but had never actually learned how to speak. I couldn't move. The creature took one step toward me. I stepped backward. It stopped. Then it tilted its head in the opposite direction, like it was studying me. I could barely make out its face. Pale skin, hollow eyes, a mouth that seemed far too wide. And something about that face felt familiar. Not because I recognized the creature, but because it looked like it was trying to recognize me. Then it smiled. I don't know how else to describe it. It didn't smile like a person. Its mouth simply stretched wider, much wider than a human mouth should. And then it said my name. Alex. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun across the floor. For 1 second, it illuminated the creature's legs. Then its hands. Then its face. And I finally understood what my grandmother had been afraid of. I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I remember throwing myself upward. I remember my hands slipping against the wooden railing. I remember hearing something behind me. Not footsteps. Something faster. Something crawling. I reached the top of the stairs and slammed the basement door shut. Something hit it from the other side. Boom. The entire door shook. I locked it. Then I locked the second latch. Then the third. I backed away, breathing as hard as I could. For several seconds, there was silence. I thought maybe the door had stopped it. Then I heard a soft scratching sound. Right against the other side. Slowly, something dragged its fingernails down the wood. From the top of the door, all the way to the floor. I didn't wait to hear anything else. I ran toward the front entrance. I reached the front door. I grabbed the handle. Pulled. Nothing. I pulled harder. The door wouldn't move. I unlocked the deadbolt. Tried again. Nothing. I looked toward the windows. I ran to the nearest one and tried to lift it. It wouldn't budge. I tried another. Then another. Every window was stuck. Every door was locked. It suddenly felt like the entire house had changed around me. The walls seemed closer. The ceilings seemed lower. Even the air felt different. I stood in the hallway, trying to think. Then I heard something upstairs. A dragging sound. Slow. Deliberate. Coming toward me. I looked up at the staircase and saw a dark mark on the floor. Whatever had been in the basement was already upstairs. I followed the mark with my eyes. It stretched across the wooden floor. A long, dark trail. It disappeared around the corner. I didn't want to follow it. Every instinct in my body told me to run in the opposite direction. But there was nowhere to go. So I slowly climbed the stairs. One step. Then another. The house was completely silent. I reached the hallway. The trail continued along the floor. Past the old family photographs. Past my grandmother's bedroom. And straight toward my room. I stared at my bedroom door. It was slightly open. I was certain I had closed it. Then I heard something from inside. A soft whisper. My name. I walked backward. I didn't go into the room. Instead, I stepped into the hallway and slowly pulled the door shut. I locked it. Then I stood there, listening. Nothing. Maybe it had moved. Maybe it was waiting somewhere else. I remembered my grandmother's warning. If you hear knocking, don't answer. Then came the first knock. Knock. I froze. The second came a few seconds later. Knock. Then the third. Knock. I stared at the door. And from the other side, my grandmother whispered, "Alex." My stomach dropped. I knew she was dead. I had watched them bury her. I had stood beside her coffin. I had held her hand for the last time. Whatever was behind that door wasn't my grandmother. I didn't answer. The silence continued. Then the voice came again. "Alex, it's me." It sounded exactly like her. Every little detail was there. The weakness in her voice. The way she used to pause between words. Even the slight tremble. But something was wrong. It sounded like a perfect recording. A recording that didn't understand what it was saying. Then the voice changed. It became deeper. A man's voice. "Alex." Then a woman's voice. "Open the door." Then a child's voice. "Please." I backed away. Then it spoke again. And this time, it sounded like me. My exact voice. My exact tone. Even the way I breathed between words. "Alex." I felt cold all over. Because I finally understood. It wasn't trying to scare me. It was practicing. I remembered the note. The revolver. My grandmother's bedroom. I ran. I pushed open her bedroom door and rushed toward the old dresser. My hands were shaking as I pulled open the top drawer. For a moment, I couldn't see it. Then I remembered exactly where she had said it would be. Beneath a stack of folded clothes. I pulled them aside. And there it was. An old revolver. 6 rounds. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. Cold. Real. For the first time since entering that house, I felt like I had something that might actually protect me. Then I heard a voice behind me. Very softly. Alex. I slowly turned around. It was standing in the doorway. I finally saw it clearly. And somehow, seeing it was worse than imagining it. It was impossibly tall. Its body was thin enough to look almost fragile. Its arms hung far too low. Its fingers were long and narrow. Its head leaned to one side. And its face looked like my grandmother. But not really. It was as if something had remembered her face incorrectly. The eyes were too deep. The cheeks were stretched. The skin looked almost pulled across the skull. And the mouth. There was something terribly wrong with the mouth. It opened slowly, and I expected to hear my grandmother's voice. Instead, I heard mine. Alex. My own voice, coming from that thing. I couldn't move. It took one slow step into the bedroom. I raised the revolver. Stay back. The creature stopped. Then it smiled, and repeated my words. Stay back. It sounded exactly like me. I tightened my grip around the gun. What are you? It tilted its head. For several seconds, it said nothing. Then it whispered, "You know." I shook my head. I don't. Its smile disappeared. Then it said, "You've always known." I felt my stomach turn. It took another step. "You just forgot." Then it pointed one long finger toward the floor. "Come back downstairs." I didn't answer. The creature's face suddenly changed. For a fraction of a second, I saw my grandmother, then myself, then a child I didn't recognize. All three faces flickering across the same impossible head. And that's when I realized, it wasn't just copying voices. It was copying people. I raised the revolver higher. The creature stopped. Its eyes moved toward the gun. For the first time, I saw fear in its face. Real fear. It took one step backward. I followed with the gun. Another step. It backed away again. I suddenly understood why my grandmother had left me the weapon. She hadn't left it because she believed I could defeat the thing. She had left it because she knew there was one moment, one chance, when it could still be stopped. The creature stared at me. Then it whispered in my grandmother's voice, "Please, Alex." I almost lowered the gun. Almost. Then it smiled. And I knew the voice wasn't hers. It was just another mask. The creature suddenly lunged. It moved impossibly fast. 1 second it was standing near the doorway. The next, it was almost on top of me. I didn't think. I didn't aim. I simply pulled the trigger. Bang! The sound exploded through the house. The creature stopped mid-motion. For a second, everything seemed frozen. Its body slowly collapsed backward into the darkness. Then, nothing. No movement. No voice. No scratching. No breathing. Just silence. I stood there with the revolver still raised, waiting. 5 seconds. 10. 20. Nothing happened. I slowly lowered the gun. My hands were still shaking. Smoke drifted through the room. I looked toward the doorway. The creature was gone. There was no body, no blood, nothing. Just an empty hallway. I took one cautious step forward, then another. I looked downstairs. Nothing. I looked behind me. Nothing. Maybe it had disappeared. Maybe the gun had worked. Maybe my grandmother had known exactly what she was doing. I almost laughed. Almost. Then I heard something. Very faint. Very far away. Knock. I froze. Another knock. Knock. I looked toward the basement. The sound wasn't coming from there. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It wasn't coming from any door. It was coming from beneath me. I slowly looked down. The wooden floorboards beneath my feet were completely still. I waited. Nothing. Then, knock. This time, The floor trembled. Just slightly. I stepped backward. Another tremor. I could see dust falling from the cracks between the boards. Something was underneath me. Something that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there. Then I heard her. My grandmother. Her voice came from beneath the floor. Weak. Distant. Terrified. Alex. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to hear anything else. I wanted to run. I wanted to wake up. I wanted to believe the entire night had been some horrible dream. Then she whispered, "Don't let it in." My eyes opened. I stared at the floor. Grandma. I shouldn't have said anything. The moment the word left my mouth, the house became completely silent. Then another voice answered her. My voice. But this time, it didn't come from the hallway. It didn't come from the basement. It came from directly underneath me. I looked down. A dark shape was slowly spreading beneath the floorboards. Like a shadow. Like something was standing directly beneath me. Waiting. Then the floor creaked. Once. Twice. And 3 times. Thud. 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 I finally understood the warning. My grandmother hadn't told me never to answer the knocking because the thing might come upstairs. She told me because something downstairs had been waiting for someone to answer. And now, I had. I stood there staring at the floor. I could hear my own breathing. I could feel something moving beneath my feet. Slowly, patiently, like it had all the time in the world. Then the voice came one final time. My voice. Perfectly clear. Perfectly calm. I'm home. And that's when I realized something even worse. Maybe the thing in the basement had never been trying to get into the house. Maybe it had been trying to get back into me.